Geir will be the Secretary General Special Representative for Syria, just briefed the Security Council, and he's here to talk to you now.
So, my briefing to you is basically read my briefing to the Council. So that's my message. But you will have heard that I emphasize that if the current crisis continues like it is now, it will not, we are not seeing a status quo, we are seeing a worsening of the situation. And the situation in Syria now is the worst ever. We have had 13 years of war and conflict, and never has the situation been as bad as it is today, in particular when it comes to the economy. But the security situation, of course, is impacted by what is happening in Gaza, and we have seen that with the Israeli attack on the Iranian diplomatic premises and then the Iranian response. And we still see Israeli attacks. We see attacks from Syrian territory into occupied Golan and into Israel proper. So there is a real danger of further escalation of this. So that's the security situation. On the economy, as I said, the worst ever. 9 out of 10 living in poverty, close to 17 million people in need of humanitarian assistance. And on top of it, there is absolutely no progress on the political front. And of course, to address the security and the economy, and of course linked to that also the situation for the refugees, we need progress on the political front. So I have been appealing to the Security Council today, let's make sure that we have de-escalation. We need, of course, first and foremost a ceasefire in Gaza, but we also need to de-escalate inside of Syria itself. And as you know, Security Council Resolution 2254 is talking about the need for a nationwide ceasefire. So I appealed again to that. Then I said we need to continue to work on the political process. We need to see the Constitutional Committee start its meeting again. We need to continue with step for step. But then I also emphasized that we need now a more comprehensive approach. And I have challenged all the key actors, the government, the opposition, and the international community to engage with me bilaterally in going through what is necessary to put forward a more comprehensive approach so that when the day comes, the Syrian parties are ready and the international community is ready, we have a solution that could be presented. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Questions?
Bisana Bahoy with Al Jazeera Arabic, thank you. So the concern that you just laid out, especially with the security situation, what's happening in Gaza, clearly the international community is focusing on Gaza right now. So what would you want or need the international community to do right now for Syria in terms of applying this de-escalation that you've been calling for?
So as you know, Syria, you have an area controlled by the government, you have an area controlled by the UN-listed terrorist group, HTS, in the northwest. Then you have the so-called Syrian interim government supported by the Turks. You have a Turkish-controlled area, and you have then the so-called SDF supported by the Americans. So all of these areas, you risk continued escalation. And today I mentioned 4 incidents within each and every area of how bad things are developing, not only between the areas, but also within these areas. And for this, there is no easy fix. There is no quick fix on this. You need to start with small steps. I have suggested you start with confidence-building measures, where we agree beforehand what you do. So if the government says A, the Americans and the Europeans say B, and you move in parallel. And you do it in a way that you verify. I think if you start something like this, you can start small, you can start big, you can build a little bit of confidence that could hopefully lower the tension, and then we can start moving more seriously on the other issues that I mentioned.
Yvonne?
Thank you very much. Yvonne Moriarty, News. My question is, you come here on a regular basis to brief the Security Council. The situation, as you've outlined, is only getting worse. How frustrated are you with the members of the Security Council for not doing enough to tackle what is a war that's been going on for 14 years?
I think we can look at the Syrian crisis, we can look at what's happening between Israel and the Palestinians, we can look at what's happening in Sudan, and we can look at many other areas. And there is a lack of willingness from the international community to move in a credible manner so that we can solve these issues. And this, of course, is also impacting on the work we're doing on Syria. And as you rightly said, during 14 years, we have made very, very little progress. And this is extremely disturbing. And of course, we who are working on this on a daily basis, we get frustrated. But more importantly, of course, this is extremely bad news for the Syrian people themselves. Because, as I said, all the indicators are pointing in the wrong direction, and this is what we need to change.
Thank you, sir. Abdul Hamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I have two questions. First, about the tension between Jordan and Syria on the border, and how is that affecting the overall stability in Syria? And the second, as you know, Kofi Annan served almost 10 months only. Ibrahimi served less than 2 years or so. De Mistura served 3 years and a half, I think, but you've been there for much longer than that. What could keep you during this time when there is no progress made? Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. I think, I think what is important is that UN has a commitment to the Syrian people. We can never give up. And you need to be persistent, you need to be patient, but you need to make sure that you move steadily towards a possible solution. And I think that's my duty, and that's my job. And as long as I think it's possible to move forward on that, then of course, I and the United Nations, we will continue. The issue you mentioned with Jordan is an important one. As you know, Jordan has been extremely worried about increased drug trafficking and also about the smuggling of weapons. I met with Foreign Minister Safadi, the Jordanian Foreign Minister, in Brussels, and he explained a little bit in detail how they are working on this, and he also explained to me how they are dealing with the Syrian government on this and the dialogue they're having on that. For the details on that, you would have to ask him.
Yes, hi, Joseph Klein, Canada Free Press. First of all, did I hear correctly that you said that the poverty rate currently is 9 out of 10?
9 out of 10, yes.
So 90%?
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, can you give us at least an estimate of the number of civilian deaths within Syria within the last year?
Listen, I don't have very numbers I can verify within the last year. But a few years back, I think 3 years back, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights put forward figures for how many civilians had been killed throughout the conflict. And they could go and point to each and every individual who had been killed, more than 300,000. More than 300,000. No, through the conflict. Yeah, but then there is one important thing, and that is, as you may have heard that Martin Griffiths also said, is of course that when it comes to people being killed and maimed, of course the numbers now are going down compared with the height of the conflict. But there are still too many civilians being killed on a daily basis all across Syria. But there is no official statistics, I'm afraid, on that.
Thank you, Stefano Vaccari, La Voce New York, Ital Press. I don't hear much talking, not you, in the last several months, maybe here too, about the crime against humanities that in Syria been happening during those 14 years, especially in the beginning. So my question is, do you think that for your mission to find peace, maybe it's better to put aside certain things that happen, and that maybe the international tribunals or anything is better to stay away, or the search for justice should always be there no matter what?
Listen, I think the important thing for me now is, as I said, to work on the immediate challenges. So I said de-escalation. Let's make sure that we meet the humanitarian crisis with increased funding and not decreased funding, and then to restart the political process. And it is only through an intra-Syrian dialogue, where the opposition and the government sit down and discuss, that we will be able to move forward. And that's also the area, I think, that they will have to discuss eventually, if they are to find a solution to this tragic conflict.
Denis Akishev, TASS News Agency. Recently, Syrian opposition told that it proposed a new initiative, Syrian opposition Astana platform, that it proposed new initiative on the settlement of the situation in the country. So could you provide some details and your attitude and maybe some key propositions of it?
No, I'm afraid that's a bit too early for me to comment on that. Okay. All right?
Last question, Ruda.
Thank you. Sinan Tunçdemir with Ruda Media Network. My question is, it's been 14 years, the war has started in Syria, and I think like between 6 and 8 countries have been bombing Syria every day almost. And what's the biggest challenge for you to stop? Like, what it became a battleground for international forces, especially Syria? As I said, more like 8 countries.
I think, this has developed into a serious challenge that we are having, at least 6 different foreign armies operating in Syria one way or another. Of course, as the government always reminds us, 2 of them, Russia and Iran, are there on the invitation of the government, but the others are also active in this arena. And it's just, for me, it's significant because it proves that, for us to be able to move forward, all of these actors need to be involved. It's not possible to find a solution to the Syrian crisis without all of these actors getting involved, of course, together with the Syrian parties. But what it also shows is that some of the most important issues are not in the hands of the Syrian parties, but in the hands of the actors that you actually mentioned. And that's part of the tragedy, I'm afraid. All right? I think that, so study very carefully my briefing, and there you will get all the answers. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.